Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. We are sitting down with Tuija Seipell at the Tech Chill conference in Riga. And Tuija, can you tell us more about yourself? You wear so many hats with so many different interests.
Personally, I'm curious. That would probably be the one thing that describes me the best, is curious. I'm always asking why. That's why I'm wearing a ring that is a question mark, because that's been a hallmark of my life. So that's led me to a lot of different things, but how I spend most of my time these days is in three things. One is consulting with businesses and many other types of organizations, governments, cities, healthcare, just about anything. And also businesses of large size and very small size, so individual startups and whatever. So that's the consulting part. Then there is this part, which is the speaking, waving my hands in front of different audiences. And then the third part is the writing and editing, from which the Cool Hunter comes from. And I've been the editor of that for the last 13 years.
That's incredible. And so from your consulting side, I know that you have a wide variety of clientele, including Harley Davidson, Nike, and these massive brand names. And what is it that you try to impart to these major corporations?
I try to impart to them exactly the same I would impart to a one-person startup, which is that there is nothing that is more valuable than understanding your customer.
So true.
That is end of story. That sort of aspects of that, and usually, certainly in the last 10 years or so, most of the time, why people would come to me is exactly that they would either already know that their customer experience needs a boost, or they feel their staff needs a little bit of a, motivation about things, or they need to clarify their brand, they need to create a new brand. It could be any of those things that are the starting point, but it always leads to understanding the customer, and especially understanding the customer's feelings. Like, what are they feeling? What are their motivations? What are their values? What inspires them?
What inspires your customers?
Because that's what buying decisions are based on. No matter how much we rationalize later and say, this is totally a rational decision, every buying decision is based on emotions, and they are very basic emotions.
And so how can a company tap into their clients' emotions? How can they find out?
Well, there is only one way, and that's the difficult way, which is why it isn't done, which is to actually talk to the customer, to actually be present where the customers are. And because I stay in hotels half of the year, I deal with a lot of hotels. And one of the things I often say, that you shouldn't even have an office. Like, anybody working in a hotel should be out there where the customers are. They are already here. They have the pleasure, the unusual privilege of having their customers present on their premises. They come to you. So why not use that opportunity and try to be as close to them as possible, and observe and see what they're doing and hear what they are saying. And yet we tend to hide in our offices and then rely on customer surveys or online feedback or whatever. That's a small percentage of people that will give you any kind of feedback. And the worst kind of customer is, of course, this one that isn't altogether happy but never told you anything, just won't come back. So that's one problem. And the other one is that a lot of the companies who do have, and most do, have some sort of a level of staff that is in fact in touch with the customer, either online or on the phone or in the physical world. And yet we don't listen to those people. We don't listen to our frontline staff. We don't hear what they have to say. And what I hear most is that staff members say, there's no point telling the bosses. They won't do anything. We've tried, they don't care. The customers say there is no point telling them. They won't change anything, so I won't tell them. I just don't come back. And the bosses are saying there's no need to change anything. We get great feedback. And that can happen in one and the same business, all these three things. And that's not a good thing, because the bosses are out of touch with what is happening on the front line, and the front line doesn't feed it back to the bosses anymore because they are frustrated. So I don't think we use the tools we already have. We don't have to invent anything new. We just have to use what's there.
Yeah, and you've just demonstrated that customer experience is directly tied to internal company culture.
Yep. It is also, of course, a hotel is a sort of, in one sense, a simplistic example, that it is a physical place where people actually come. And so much of the business today is happening online, so that nobody ever comes to anything. So that just complicates the same thing. But amazingly enough, and you can tell that from your own world, you can sense attitudes online as well. I've often said that if you are unpleasant in real life, you will be unpleasant online as well. That it's somehow, or if you're nice, people can sense it. So your online behavior is just as important. But I think that the key is to really listen and really be present. There is no shortcut. There is no shortcut across that. And people are trying to do absolutely everything but that, because that is difficult.
Yes, I feel like that's a trend that we're hearing again and again. That shortcuts aren't the way to drive business results, and you have to do the hard stuff.
No, and as we all know, I just started my presentation here as texture with the happy note that most of you are going to fail. Whoopee, isn't that fun? And most startups fail because they didn't need a market. There was no market. So what does that mean? There weren't enough people willing to buy what you had, or we didn't really connect with the right kinds of people at all, so that they never even had the opportunity. And why did we not connect with them? We didn't know enough about them, and therefore we didn't know how to connect with them. So I'm sorry to sound like a broken record, but that's how it is. Mm-hmm. That is how it is, and it does not matter how big your company is.
Yep, and I also love your talk titles, and one of the recent talks was good enough is not good enough.
Yeah, and it sounds, many people or some people interpret that as, I'm a perfectionist, that's what I'm talking. No, that's not at all what I mean. What I mean is that let's not believe our own our own inner talk, because I hear it so often that the bosses are looking at the customer feedback and believing that that's the truth, that that's the real thing. Whereas when I talk to the frontline people or the people who are actually connecting with the customer online or offline, they tell a totally different story. So the point is that we shouldn't be complacent. We shouldn't be happy with less than our very best every day. And because the customer experience gets broken 24 hours a day these days. In the old days, you closed your door and the business day ended. So you could go to sleep and you knew that overnight your business probably wasn't going to be ruined. Today, any morning you can wake up and somebody's, posted a picture, started a rumor, actually experienced something awful.
Or maybe the product has had an error.
Yeah, so it's constantly in danger of being broken, customer experience is, which is why we should not be happy with good enough. We should try for better, much better.
I feel like you've already answered my next question, which would have been, what is the one thing an entrepreneur can do to change their customer experience and elevate it?
and go where people are and observe. You don't go with a huge barrage of questions like, yeah, the focus groups are good, but they don't, because you only get what your question allows. You know that being an interviewer, that your answer is only as good as the question was. So if we go in with a very strongly slanted set of questions, we will get certain kinds of answers. So what I would like people to do is gather, go and have meetups every time you're in a different city or whatever. Just have meetups of people who are total strangers to you, but who could give you some sort of feedback about your product or your service. Give them some sort of a prototype to play with, and then observe, and then keep asking, why? Why did you do that? I thought that when people use this app, they do this and then they do that, but you did this and you did that. Why did you do that? Why? Because when you keep asking the why question, you also get into the emotions. You get to the underlying reasons why people do something. And that is very difficult to get to with some sort of a questionnaire or, customer feedback form.
I can also imagine that it's complicated to convey that emotion to whoever is communicating to the higher ups. So I feel like there's a lot of internal culture of sharing required to be able to facilitate this.
Yeah, and you already sort of led into that, and then I led away from it probably when you said that it has to do with the internal thing too, because if you don't treat your staff well, or the people who work for you, if they are not somewhat happy with their lives in your service, then how could they possibly be giving the best kind of service or help or advice or whatever to the people who are supposed to pay for their salary?
Right. And
so it's the same old cycle. And I've often said, and I honestly have seen it many, many times in big companies and in tiny companies, that when you start to talk to the people who could possibly be buying or who are buying, you will not necessarily hear at all what you expected to hear. So that is also something that I've seen a lot, that people assume. We assume so much.
Yep.
We assume. That's why and I'm a why person myself, so that's why I keep saying, ask the question why. Just after my presentation here, there was a lineup of people who wanted to talk to me afterwards. And when they said something, like many of them said, I really liked your presentation, or, wow, what an inspiration. I always say, what resonated with you? Why did you like it? Because then I will understand what touched them. How do I know? I have my own assumptions of when I say this, that will happen. But I'm not in their heads. I don't know. And every single time I find out something I didn't know or expect.
And then you can build on it.
Yeah.
And create
then you understand
more.
I can get more of those, or, I really relate to those people. So if I said more of these kinds of things, I would get the right kind of feedback. So it's a discovery. And one of the things that is very clear is that because the business world used to be built by people, either entrepreneurs who were just, great at and tenacious and went on and on and on till they got it done, such as Walt Disney, one of my heroes. Or in general, they were people who came out of business school, went to business school because they liked math and money and, all of those things. And I don't know, is that really the only kind of brain we need in businesses? So that's why I also talk more and more about design and design thinking, so that we would get more variety at the boardroom table, so that everything doesn't die in the numbers. Because you can, in theory, sort of nix any idea by saying, okay, yeah, no, that doesn't work. It costs too much. We have the data. No. That's the old way of thinking. We can't. It doesn't work anymore. So, but it's insecure. It's strange, sort of mushy. Feelings and all this stuff. It's not the safe world of numbers and money and data and.
Yeah, it's difficult, especially when at a board level you have to prove your decision.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can prove it, but it isn't always numbers. It isn't always numbers. And I think that I have no problem saying that if you improve your connection with your customer and you improve the overall feeling of your staff, your customer satisfaction will go up, and that should generate more money. So, yeah, I can prove it, but it takes a little while.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of dedication and follow through.
And also work and trust that it is worth it.
Yeah.
And long term, because it's not a quick fix.
And we come back to the point that there are no shortcuts.
No, there aren't. Everybody would be taking it. It isn't like the business world is somehow stupid and therefore they are not taking this easy solution. This is not an easy solution. It's expensive. It takes time. Most people would need a psychologist within the company to actually help people, help the staff, help the bosses with their own knots and neuroses, Psychologists will have a field day in the future. Designers will have a field day.
So is
women
that a trend?
Will have a field day because women are perhaps even through biology more programmed into sensing feelings and into empathy and more familiar and feel more safe in that environment. So I'm not saying women are better. What I'm saying is that women are different and that we need both. We absolutely need both.
Without a doubt.
Both sides of the brain, both sides of all sides of the sexual spectrum, all cultures, all religions, all colors, all everything.
Everything.
Global world needs all of that.
I feel like we've touched on so many important things to drive business growth, asking why, talking directly to customers, improving internal culture to affect the bottom line.
Yep.
Is there anything else that you would like to touch on before we finish this interview?
I use the word love a lot, and I use it on purpose to provoke a little. So like today, my headline was actually, just to soften it a little, it said, show me a reason to like you. But then my next slide is, show me a reason to love you. That liking is not enough. Liking doesn't require any kind of commitment. It's just as easy to unlike as it is to like. It doesn't cost me any kind of emotional pain. So unless your customers love you, then you really don't have a relationship. And therefore they can leave any time without giving you notice, without, having any kind of, somebody comes who is better, cheaper, more fun, whatever it is. So it's so easy to lose those customers unless they have unless they are your fans. They have to be your fans. And of course, the cornerstone of love is trust. Trust, both internally and externally. So love and trust.
Love and
Why
trust.
love and trust?
Why love and trust? Well, thank you so much. I feel like this has been incredibly valuable for our viewers.
I hope
Thank
so.
you for
Thank you.
taking the time to sit down with us. If you would like to see more videos like this, make sure to give this video a like. It lets us know that this kind of content is for you. See you in the next video. Thank you.
Thank you.